Good morning from back here in the rice fields of Bali. First and foremost, thank you to everybody who sent messages of concern whether I've made it out alive. This video is proof of life. Here I am, I'm alive, I made it out. Thank you for your concern. It was quite the adventure, but I'm okay. Everything is good. I was going to talk this morning about the difference between being rich and being poor based on an email that I got this morning, inspiring that talk, but I got derailed in the middle of trying to record it because I realized that there's something that's a lot more pressing that needs to be discussed publicly right now, and it's around this topic of the whistleblower kids. And if you haven't watched that video, I don't want to go into detail of what they shared, but it's basically a couple kids who couldn't be more than 9 or 10 years old exposing some big pedophile satanic worship ring in the UK. And it's hard to watch. I watched it for my first time yesterday or the day before, and I posted it on Facebook, and I apologize for posting it because it was so sick and disgusting. And I realized that the worst thing that we can do in times like these is bury our heads in the sand. There's too much of that that's going on in the world. There's too much atrocity, and there's too much absolute just evil that's taking place. And such a common response is to not just turn our head the other way, and I just don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. Okay, maybe it exists, maybe it doesn't, but just keep it out of my out of my vision, because it's just disturbing. And I understand why people would be that way. I understand why people would want to pretend that that kind of stuff doesn't exist, sacrificing babies and whatnot. Because it's terrible, it's horrific. And if we can live in a world where things like that exist, then how much other stuff exists that we don't want to take a look at? And I've spent the last couple years of my life exposing lies on the radio and in my blog. And I've moved on to discussing things that are very deep with me right now, that are very, bubbling to the surface of what represents my passion and my purpose, and helping me to find meaning in my life, which is more revolving around finding positivity and looking at everything in the world as it all happens for a reason, and get people to focus on the positive and not spend so much time dwelling in the negative. And that's who I am as a person. So it's easy for me to be. I'm a bona fide optimist. I look for the silver lining in situations. It's not hard for me to do. I'm constantly trying to find ways to be happier and share that with other people, and that's great. I'm not saying don't be that way. It would be hypocritical of me to give that message here. But when things do swing into our awareness in regards to the other end of the spectrum, it's not that we're not being positive or not being optimistic when we look at it. It's just simply giving attention to something that needs to be brought up into the open so that everybody can see. Because awareness is so huge. We cannot, when we bury our heads in the sand when stories like this surface, what we're doing, whether we realize it or not, is we are unconsciously allowing those things to continue, to perpetuate. At some point, we simply just have to put our foot down and say, yes, I know this is sick. I know it's disgusting. I know it's horrific. But it's my responsibility now to do what I can in my power to stop this kind of thing happening once and for all. There's so much that's occurring in the world right now that leads me to believe that we are on the precipice of so much of the darkness caving in on itself. And you know how we quicken that process? We unbury our heads from the sand, and we share the kinds of stories that need to get out, whether we feel like it's horrific or not. We do our part, we do our duty in sharing that information that needs to get out to a larger percentage of the population so that it can no longer continue. And right as I said that, I'm recording at 4:44, so there's something to that, looking at that exact time. But that's what this message is about today. It's about taking action, whether we want to look at something or not. Closing our eyes and pretending it doesn't exist isn't going to take it away. It's not about resisting darkness. It's not about resisting evil. It's simply about taking conscious action to ensure that the next generation of our children to come do not have to live with the kind of atrocity that exists on the planet today. You know, it's one thing to pretend something that doesn't exist. It's another to look at a situation, a circumstance, an event, or an unfolding and say, this does exist, but it doesn't have to. And the road to that, eliminating things like this from our reality, is recognizing them first. And then asking ourselves on a daily basis, what can I do? What can I do to assist in this process of clearing and cleansing so that my children and my children's children don't have to wake up and live in a world where evil lurks around every corner. And it's okay for me to realize that it doesn't have to be this way. And I can make a difference in exposing something that needs to be exposed so that it can stop once and for all. So I hope this message inspires people to unbury their heads from the sand, and I realize that, you know, it's not, this is notice how this is hard. This is a hard conversation for me to have. But I know that it needs to be had. And so I hope that it inspires people to hit that share button, to talk to their friends and their neighbors and their family about some of these things, because the more we talk about it, the more it becomes out in the open, the more we can say, you know what, I'm not going to stand around and watch for these things like this to happen anymore. And I will do in my power what it takes, whether it's sharing it on Facebook, getting out and raising awareness in the community, or whatever it is. And because it's hard doesn't mean that it's wrong. If anything, it means that it needs to be discussed. So let's just stay strong during these times, yeah? Thanks for being with me. This video is a little bit longer. I'm sorry it was a little bit all over the place, but I know it needs to be discussed. So I hope you guys have a great day. Let's end the darkness, and it's time to put our foot down once and for all. Talk to you soon.